Shalom, welcome to another episode of Inspiration from Zion. I'm Jonathan Feldstein, and I have the privilege of being your host, coming to you from the Judean Mountains here in Israel. I like to refer to it as the original Bible Belt. Inspiration from Zion is a program of the Genesis 123 Foundation, whose mission is to build bridges between Jews and Christians with Israel in ways that are new, unique, and meaningful. I pray that you will find this all of those. Through this program, we're excited to connect you to people and stories in and relating to Israel to give you a window to look through, experiencing aspects of life here that you might not otherwise know about. We want this to be interactive, so please be in touch with us at inspirationfromzion@gmail.com and send along any questions and any comments about any topic anytime. Or you can reach us at genesis123.co or follow and like Inspiration from Zion on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. As I was getting ready for today's conversation, I realized I don't know how long I know my friend Rebecca for. And I think that that's a really great indication of just the fact that we've become, albeit very long distance, part of each other's lives. We connect a lot. We had a lovely, I don't even remember how long ago it was, a lovely meal together at a kosher deli in Teaneck, New Jersey several years ago. And we've been in constant contact on a whole number of things ever since. But I really think that the foundational thing about all of it is just a really warm friendship. And from I won't put words in her mouth, but I can say also a mutual respect. I love what Rebecca does. Her family is amazing, and Rebecca also has a podcast which I've been on. So we tag team a little bit. One Little Candle. We're going to talk about that. And what's provoking today's conversation is an unbelievable book that she wrote for children. And having six children and five grandchildren, I'm very profoundly aware of the significance of important books to children, how many books for children can be very trite and many of them damaging. And this is in the first category. I is for Israel. I was so excited when Rebecca sent me the PDF of it first, and I got to peruse it, and I just opened my eyes to something, I don't know, that seemed so obvious to me, but nobody's done. So I am so excited to introduce my friend Rebecca Berschwinger, who is joining us from upstate New York, which maybe I'll come and visit in the fall when the leaves are beautiful, because we don't get that too much here in Israel. And Rebecca, it's really we're going to be in touch over the next couple of months on a lot of things, but it's really great to see you and have you back on Inspiration from Zion again.
Thank you, Jonathan. I am very honored to be here.
Well, I'm honored to have you, and here we go. Before we talk about the book, because I want to lead up to it. Let's let people know who you are. Why did you write a book called I is for Israel? What's your background, your family background, and where did you grow up, and kind of where did your faith blossom?
Yeah. So I hail from upstate New York, just outside Albany, the Capital District area, in a little town called Princetown. I grew up Christian, so I am a born again Christian. And so I'm also, I'll throw the personal details in here. I've been married for 40 years this year. I've got four kids and
Congratulations.
seven grandchildren. Number eight is on the way next month. So very blessed in that area. But I started writing children's books because I was seeing what was out there and it was very anti-biblical,
Yeah.
anti-Christian. And so obviously someone who has a Christian worldview, that did not set well with me at all, especially in the areas of God's design for marriage, gender, and race. And I saw that we were, and Israel, but I saw that we were just, there's thousands upon thousands of books that are that do not have a biblical worldview for God's design. And there's dozens on the market that have a biblical worldview. So that's, for me, it's a major problem. And I've always had, moving on to Israel, I've always had a love for Israel ever since I can remember, and been desiring to go there for decades. This is my year.
Yes, it
But
is.
you know, especially since October, I knew, let me backtrack a little bit. I knew there were issues with people concerning Israel. I knew there was a problem with anti-Semitism. But October 7th really opened my eyes, a lot of people's eyes, as to just how it has really permeated throughout society. I think it was always there. It was just simmering and brewing, waiting for the
Yes.
golden
Yes.
opportunity to
Yes.
really come out. And October 7th did that. And so I thought, well, okay, like with my other books, I need to write something for children about Israel because, and the problem is also within the church, it's within the Christian church. We have these unbiblical theologies like replacement theology that has permeated the church, and anti-Semitism coming from within the Christian church. And that, for me and many other believers, that is just not acceptable.
Right.
And so,
Minimally, it just doesn't make sense. But
right.
unacceptable also works.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And we look at it, many of us, we look at it as a sin. It's a sin against God. But the world likes to start out with children at a very young age,
Wow. Yeah.
with indoctrination. And so I thought I'm going to start out at a young age about Israel for the kids. So, yeah, I
Amazing.
wrote this book. And I'm sorry, maybe I neglected to tell you it's no longer I is for Israel because
Uh-oh.
I thought I told you, but probably not with the busyness. There are 4 other books out there called I is for Israel. And I was like,
Oh,
no. So it's called Israel, Chosen and Cherished,
I love it.
Equipping Families to Love God's Chosen People.
Nice.
That's a little longer, but it's a title I think that'll stand out a little better. So
It does. I like it a lot. And obviously,
yeah.
we will change the name of this podcast from I is for Israel so we don't accidentally promote someone else's book.
Yeah.
Um, but it's funny because as you're talking, and I said it in my intro, I wasn't even thinking of it. I was thinking generically. I can't, with you have 4 kids, I have 6, I have 5 grandchildren, you have 7. We can't count, and we're more or less the same age. We can't count how many books we've read to our children and grandchildren if we're
Mhm.
if we're good. Yesterday, my all of my kids except for one was here, and all of my grandchildren, and we spent Shabbat together. And to
Nice.
my 1.5-year-old, I was reading one of the books that I read always to my kids when they were growing up. Where's Spot? But I find it to be such an inane book. I suppose for a 1.5-year-old, you want to look at pictures of penguins and hippopotamus and lions and snakes and what have you, and there's nothing that's bad or scary or
Yeah.
unbiblical about that. But other than
Right.
identifying animals and maybe making their sounds, there's really not a whole lot of value to it. So what you're bringing to the table is real important. I want to do a deeper dive into the book, but I'm curious because I didn't know this about you. You said for as long as you can remember, you've loved Israel. You grew up. Did your parents, can you give anchors of how your parents infused that, or that was just part of your life?
Yeah, no, it wasn't my parents. It was instilled in the church that I attended. So, growing up where I first came to know the Lord. So that's what instilled it in me. And honestly, I just I don't remember specifically whatever was said about Israel in the church, but for me, it goes hand in hand with being a Christian,
Yeah,
a genuine believer. We're to have a love for what God loves, and God makes it clear in His Word. He loves the people of Israel. He loves the nation of Israel. He's not done with the nation of Israel or any of the things that people say. And I just want to share a personal story talking about connection. October 7th. All right. Now we have a time difference here. When things that were happening on October 7th in the morning, and here it was late
Friday
evening.
night.
It
Yeah,
was a Friday night, 11 midnight, right around those times. But I was up since 9 o'clock. I went to bed early that night, very early for me. I was up for several hours, and Israel was on my mind. And I got reading through my Bible, and but I was crying, and I was crying, and I just had this heaviness of heart about Israel. I felt grieved, and I even said, God, why? What's going on? Why am I feeling this way
yeah,
about Israel? It just was very, like I said, I had a darkness and a heaviness and a grief. And, I stayed up and I prayed. I prayed for Israel. I prayed for the Jewish people. I prayed for me. When I got up then in the morning to go to work, my husband said, "Hey," he says, "have you heard the news yet?" I said, "No." He goes, "I hate to tell you this before you leave for work." He said, "But something horrible happened in Israel in the this morning." He said, so he kind of briefed me. He said, "You might want to listen to the news." And so I did. I began to hear everything about October 7th. But when I looked back at the time, I realized those times I was up in bed was within times when all this was taking place.
Yeah.
So I believe it was a spiritual thing. There is a spiritual connection there. I didn't know why I was so grieved. God did. God
Yeah.
knew what was happening.
What's one thing that's
So,
interesting, and you started saying it before, but I come to the position now, nearly 3 years after October 7th, is that I never use the term October 7th because I believe that there are too many people in the world who just know that as one of 365 days in the year, and I always narrate that and say
mm,
the Hamas attack and massacre of
yeah,
October 7th, 2023. I know for you, it's shorthand and understood. I surely hope that for
yeah,
everyone who follows inspiration from Zion, that it's understood. But especially as we're talking about children,
mm,
right? And your point is never to oh, I should tell you a story. I haven't written about it yet, but remind me not to forget it. That happened with my 5-year-old grandson yesterday. Children are so impressionable,
yes,
and while we don't need to frighten them with stories of what happened on October 7th, when they're little and in tremendously important formative years, by the same token, we need to give them the background so they have the prompts to know what indeed. So sure, I is for Israel, great. Someone else got that, but Israel chosen, cherished and chosen, even better because that goes really to the core of not just a letter in the alphabet, but the what Israel is biblically. So
yeah,
I'm really grateful. But,
yeah.
huh.
And
So
that's
I don't
exactly
forget.
what it is. I wanted to let them know that it's not political,
Yeah,
it's biblical.
yeah,
And like you said, at young ages, they're sponges, they're very impressionable. They'll learn eventually, the younger ones, what happened with October 7th. But for now, I just want to equip families, parents, Christian parents, to instill in their child our connection and,
yeah.
the love and respect that we should have for the people of Israel.
It's a
So
book for kids. How old would you say?
I it's so hard to target those because kids are different. So you always have an approximate age range. And for here, I would say 4 to 9
Okay. So
would
I
probably be
asked
a
that
good age range.
thinking more or less the same myself, but then in the context of the story that happened yesterday that I really need to write about, I didn't even tell my wife about it. I was walking home from Shabbat worship yesterday with my son-in-law. I have two sons-in-law, but the older one, the father of the four oldest grandsons, and I had my 4-year-old grandson on my shoulders, and my 5-year-old was walking, and my son-in-law was pushing the stroller with the 1.5-year-old. And at some point, I mean, actually, it's so vivid in my mind. I can go when you come here. I could take you exactly to where my 5-year-old grandson said something about a ceasefire. 5 years old.
Yeah.
And my son-in-law is a tremendous parent, but both of my kids are. All four of my kids who are parents are wonderful. And my son-in-law started exploring with this 5-year-old boy, what does that mean? What is a ceasefire? And who
Yeah.
told you about a ceasefire? And basically what my grandson said, well, ceasefire means that there won't be war anymore. Now, my 5-year-old doesn't really know what war means, hopefully, except for the fact that his father has been gone since October 7th of 2023, hundreds of days, and
And having
that
to run to bomb shelters all the
and run to
time.
bomb shelters. And
Mm,
he's the one who, at the beginning of the war, was particularly jarred by hearing planes overhead. Now that's normal for him, and he actually does a very funny. I don't know if he can still do it, probably a very funny impersonation of what an air raid siren sounds like. here. Now, maybe that's a good thing, or maybe that's a thing that in 20 or 50 years he's going to need therapy for. But
Mm.
all of this is to underscore something very, very personal, and how you take in this unbelievable book from the positive perspective, that a parent can, or grandparent in my case, in your case, can
Yes.
sit
Yep.
down with their kid and just give them something that's very rooted, very basic. And who knows, maybe that'll become, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but one of my grandchildren's favorite books when they're older is Cat in the Hat. Well, that's a little mischievous. It's a cute book, but they love it, and I read it with lots of um, enthusiasm. But hopefully, your book will be that. Before we talk about the book, though, because I really do want to do a deep dive, and you
Mm.
showed me that you have a copy of it. So for those who are going to watch, we're going to see a little bit. Um, let's talk a little bit about your podcast, because I'm curious. I was thinking of it before in terms of a chicken and the egg relating to your own faith. Well, I don't remember if I knew this, Rebecca. When did you start your podcast? And tell people about it, where people can follow you.
Yeah, I started it back in 2021. So I've been doing it for 5 years. I've been a part of the Christian podcast community, which is a ministry of striving for eternity. There's about 50 podcasts within the Christian podcast community right now. So I've been a part of that too, which has been wonderful. I've been there for, I think, a little over 4 years. But yeah, so my podcast is just to equip believers to know just not what they believe, but why they believe it. We tackle really tough cultural issues from a biblical, standpoint. And I've done several episodes on Israel as well. So, because again, I don't like some of the things I'm seeing or hearing within certain parts of the Christian church, and so I've done things on Israel to, hopefully open people's eyes and get them to
Yeah.
realize that
Have you
Israel's not
gotten
the bad guy here.
have you gotten
But
pushback for that, Rebecca? For your
I
stance
have
on Israel?
not. I have not. Most people, like my women's group at church and people I know, Christians I know that hear it are it's been a good lesson for them. So they're very grateful because it's helping them to defend Israel against people sometimes within their own families who think, oh, Israel bad, free Palestine kind of mentality. It's really helped to equip them to it's been a good tool and resource for them to defend Israel.
And what about from other podcasters or in your church or the broader community, not people who are necessarily listening? Do you ever come across any of the kind of church-rooted anti-Israel
I have
sentiment?
not, as of yet. I have not. The only time I ever have pushback is when I do something on God's design for marriage.
Really?
I'll get some comments there from people that don't agree with God's design from the biblical worldview. So that's the only time I usually get some pushback. Yeah,
Are you
and that's
you
fine.
shared
That's to be expected.
you shared with me, and it was particularly glaring, and I was just making notes about it just before we went on. I don't remember the details, and I don't know if you're free to speak about it, but something happened at your church 3 months ago relating to Israel that you shared that was not so good.
I'm
A
trying to
threat,
remember.
an email of
Well, we
vandalism.
yeah, okay, yeah. I'm the office manager at my church, and so I see all the emails that come in, and one was from some Muslim man trying to convince us to convert
Ah,
to Islam and to that our beliefs are bad and we need to bow to we need to practice Islam. So I can't remember. It was like a 2 or 3 page long thing, all kinds of quotes in the Quran and and how displeasing we are to God. And I think that's what you might be referring to because that's the only nothing bad has happened. Our pastor is very supportive of Israel, loves Israel, and so everyone in our church does.
good. Okay. Yeah, you've
Yeah.
introduced me to him. Eventually, I'll make it up there, like I said, in the fall. Although the fall will conflict with when you're going to be here this
I was going
coming
to
year, so
say I'm supposed to be where
we'll
you are
figure
in
that out. All right. Maybe I'll sacrifice and come up, not in the winter, but some other time. Um, so why, Rebecca? as the foundation for your book, why is Israel important? You've glossed over it from a matter of faith and used very, very vivid words in terms of how Israel must be significant to Christians. But can
Mhm.
you expand upon that, whether theologically or personally?
Well, I mean, it's all over my Bible that look, our Christian faith is rooted in Israel, rooted in the Judeo faith, okay? The Jewish faith. So from a Christian standpoint, we value the fact at how the scriptures were kept and preserved. We value the fact that God loves Israel. He chose to, and again, I know people are not going to believe in my belief in Jesus Christ, but for me, where I'm coming from, we believe Jesus is the Messiah. And so this is the land that God chose for his son to be born, raised, to carry out his plan of salvation. All right. And one day where we believe Jesus is going to return, and that is to Jerusalem to set up his earthly kingdom. And so Israel, everything focuses around Israel. Israel is the center of the world. All right. It started there and it's going to end there. And so God has made it clear it's the apple of his eye, that whoever hurts or touches Israel, well, they're in a lot of trouble. I will bless those who bless you, curse those who curse you. That's Genesis 12:3, Genesis 1, 2, 3, right? Where you got your
Yes.
so and so they're the root. Paul tells us in the New Testament that the Jews are the root of our faith. We are the branches that were graciously grafted in. And he warns us, do not become arrogant
Right.
because you've been allowed to be a part. He says it's the root that holds you, you know. So do not be arrogant, and again, I share this from my perspective, but it's also from people that I know and worship with. That is our perspective. We're grateful. We feel blessed to be a part of those Jewish roots that hold our faith so well. It's a blessing for us and an honor and a privilege and something we shouldn't take for granted.
So that actually is a perfect segue to your book itself, because when you said you feel blessed to be part of it, when you write a book, I mean, the name again, I like it so much better even. I liked it before, but I even like it better. Israel Cherished and Chosen
Hmm.
is going to that very essence. You're not writing a storybook. You're not writing about biblical tales, which are nice, which are very important, but
Hmm.
you're actually you're putting the dots out there and then connecting them for somebody. So I'm curious, what was the genesis of this specific book? And then we'll jump into talk about what's inside.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, the alarming rise in anti-Semitism. I started writing this back in 2023 when everything just exploded after October 7th. And people were coming out against this tiny little peaceful nation trying to defend itself, which, and I reminded people, and that's been one of my podcast episodes, I'll just throw that in, is that Israel's war is our war.
Yes.
Okay. Israel is on the front lines fighting this terrorism that affects us all. And I think people forget that, that this is our war as well, because first the Jews and then the Christians is Islam's,
Well,
famous little quote. So we're at risk as well,
yeah, and if you lived in a
the rest
country
of
that
the
was a
world
little
is.
if you lived in a country that was a little bit less democratic, that email that you got at church saying how your faith is wrong and you should all become Muslims, could be met with physical intimidations, and death threats. So people need to know
Yeah.
that, and that's why it's correct what you're saying is that our it's so sad to say that our war is your war, but it's true. The enemy is the
Hmm.
same enemy, and
Yes.
you realize that, but you don't go into that in the book. So
Nope.
help right. Now that's for the middle school level. Um,
Right.
but go ahead.
Yes. Yeah.
You're looking at it. Let's walk through it. I want first of all, before I forget, because sometimes I get really engrossed in the conversation and I forget to do the very basic things. When people are following this now, Rebecca, where can they go to get your book and actually books?
So far, my book is, because I did a couple changes to it. I just received the paperback proof in the mail the other day. I had to make a couple changes to it and approve those. So we're waiting on that now for the final approval. And then we'll begin to, because I went, it's self-published, it's not on Amazon. But I think the publisher I went through does also publish to Amazon. So I would say visit my website, Lovin Truth, Lovin truthbooks.com, to find out where it can be ordered and when it can be ordered. We're talking a matter of days here.
Okay.
Or even, One Little Candle podcast. I have one little candle podcast.com. I will have information about that on the website there as well. Or follow me on Instagram as One Little Candle or Love and Truth Books. So
Okay. We'll put all
the
those in
information
the
will be
show
there.
notes so
Yes.
people
Yeah. I'll
can get
send you
that.
the links and
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
good.
Yep.
Okay, so let's dive in.
Yeah.
Used to be, so the interior of the book that I saw had Israel spelling out Israel, and each
People can
page
see
or
it.
each interior. Hello, I hope you're having fun learning about a very special nation of Israel. Okay, you spell out the word, and that's how. Oh, I see. So just how chosen and cherished Israel and the Jewish people are by God. Um, so that's
Yeah.
the beginning, I trust. Yes,
Yep,
that's your
that's the
intro.
beginning. And so it's and I talk about, this is a place that God chose to show his faithfulness and grace. And they're all actual pictures of Israel.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, let me just real quick while I'm thinking about it, Jonathan. There's you.
Oh, wow. I don't remember that. Look at me with the soldiers.
That's you.
How cool.
So it starts out, it talks about S being for scriptures. And so I talk about how the Jews kept the scriptures safe for us. And I have little did you knows and fun facts about Israel.
Excellent.
R is for roots. We talk about the roots. Our Christian faith began in Israel and with the Jewish people. We will always be connected. And it says, did you know when you become a part of God's family, you get connected to the Jewish people too? It's like being added to a big, beautiful tree. The Jewish people are the roots of that tree, and we are the branches that God added on. That means we are
Mm,
family, and family sticks together.
that's so
And then
beautiful.
we
I love
have
that.
A for apple. Israel's the apple of God's eye. Again, talks more about connection, talks about Jerusalem is the eternal city of God. E is for
Oh, very
eternal.
nice.
It says Jerusalem is the only place on earth where God has chosen to put his name forever.
Yeah,
And then some fun facts about Jerusalem. L is for land, really important one here. Israel is known as the Holy Land, and it belongs to God, who gave it to the Jewish people long ago to forever be theirs.
perfect. And
Um,
you don't need to go and do a whole deep dive historically,
yeah.
but when you said God gave to Israel long ago, that's
Mm-hmm.
good enough because for a 5-year-old, that's sufficient. For a 7, 8, or 9-year-old, he or she might want to know more about that, and
And
then
there
it
is
becomes,
more.
and there is more, and the parent
Yeah.
can become the guide for that.
Yes. Yeah. And I have a prayer for Israel in here that a child can say, praying for Israel. And then I have some more pictures. And there's a glossary. There's a glossary that I just actually recently added because there's terms, I wanted to know what eternal means, covenant, homeland, Jerusalem, Messiah, roots, salvation, scriptures for the little ones,
Yeah,
shalom. I have some things in there. And then I have a lot of Bible verses for the parents that tell about this land and the history of it and God giving it to the Jewish people. I have Bible verses about the land, about our being grafted in as Christians, and scriptures, Bible verses about the scriptures that were entrusted to the Jewish people, and then a word for parents, and then some links. If you have the ebook version, you can click on the links.
Mm,
Actually, Genesis 1, 2, 3 is in there
good.
as a resource as well too. So yeah,
Oh, not
that's
you mean Genesis 123 as in my organization or Genesis 123 as in
yes.
the scripture?
I have you in the resources there
Oh, wow, I'm
for
honored.
parents to be able to check out too. So yeah,
Thank you. You know, it's
yeah,
funny. Offline, I'm going to share with you about, I didn't even think to share it with you, my mistake, about the program that we're going to be, God willing, launching this year, for kids beginning at the age elementary school that your book is for, but also going through middle and high school. So, when people are listening to this and they're curious, in addition to ordering Rebecca's books, also you can be in touch with us about the programs that we're going to launch, and I would love to include this as part of the um, projects for offering kids, Rebecca. That's amazing.
wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I said, it's all my books. All of my books are really they're parent tools disguised as storybooks because I'll call it the other side. That's how they're getting to children
yeah.
is through storybooks, colorful, engaging illustrations and rhyming and whatever, and so kind of need to answer back in the same way.
So every parent, or I would even be extra bold and say every grandparent, because sometimes we have seen generationally people slipping away from biblical foundation in their lives and they don't transmit it to their kids. Some cases
Hmm.
that doesn't happen. This is we're having this conversation in June. People can pre-order and have them already for Christmas, but just to have them in general, this is a great little gift to have in one's home when the grandchildren come over, or send to the people who you know and love who need it the most.
Yes, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Where does this fit into your library of other books, Rebecca? And how many? Talk about those so when people are coming to your website and connecting with you, they also know what else you've done. You've spoken about marriage as being one of the
Hmm.
topics. I've seen pictures of you
Yes.
having displays of books, but I don't know how many different ones there are or what their topics are.
So the ones that are actually published so far are I have one for ages 3 to 7, and it's called Celebrate How God Made You. And it's a book about God's wonderful design for permanently fixed gender. I can't believe I'm writing books about this for children, but
But you're not writing, but you're not using that language,
right.
permanently
Well,
fixed
yeah,
gender.
we could say um, the strongest point in here probably is a boy can never be a girl and a girl can never be a boy. No, not ever.
Wow.
But it just helps them to understand that it's not an accident that they're a boy or a girl. They were created by a loving creator who doesn't make mistakes. That's the point of the book. It doesn't get into, granted, again, there's notes for parents and there's resources for the parents in case they do have a child struggling, somewhere to direct them. But it helps parents broach these conversations. And then I have another one for ages 5 to 8 called How Does God See Me and How He Wants Us to See Others. And that is teaching children to look at people not through the lens of skin color, because we have the critical race theory that is viewing everyone through that lens, but to realize God looks on our hearts. And what matters is our character. And that's how we should judge others is by their character, not the color of their skin. God created us all. We're fearfully and wonderfully made,
Yeah.
and those with different skin colors. And we're all part of the same race, and that's the human race.
Yes. I always,
Um,
by the way, I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but when I applied for college, there were many fewer options to check on your handwritten application what your race was, and I always checked other because they're asking if my race was Caucasian or black, or well, I don't even remember what the options were then, but
mhm.
not even a whole Baskin Robbins full of 32 flavors, and I always checked other, and I would write human. And I'm convinced that some cases I was accepted to college because I appeared as a minority.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, yeah. It's we don't want kids to just be looking at each other through that lens. Of course, recognize someone has a different skin color, but we're together here on this planet. We're to love and respect one another. And again,
Yeah,
what's on the inside is what matters. And then
correct.
the other book that I have published is called Forever Written in the Sky. And that is the true story of the rainbow. And that is to help Christian children, parents with a biblical worldview on marriage. Um, we have such misuse of the rainbow right now. And I love the rainbow you've got in the
I
background.
know, I do. You know what? I knew that I had seen a rainbow recently, and I thought I would pick this. But who knew that this backdrop would
It's
would tie
perfect.
together two of your books with Jerusalem behind me and a rainbow over it.
Yeah, and that's for ages. This is for ages 10 to 14. And again, just to help them when they see it. So what they think automatically, well, to be able to recognize misuse, but that they think of God and God's covenant with the world. Not to, it's not the goal of the book isn't to fill them with anxiety or confusion, but just the opposite. To look at that rainbow and be reminded that God keeps his promises. His promises are unchanging.
Yeah.
Um, we can trust him. So, and that has actual pictures of the different rainbows and things like that in it as well. So, the other two books on marriage are not published yet because I am waiting on my illustrator. So,
You have
because
the
it's
same
I don't
person.
draw and I don't so
So the same person does the illustrations.
well she hasn't done all so far. I've used for the younger kids clip art. They like the
Oh, okay.
big, the bold, beautiful, bright, clip art images, and then the rainbow and Israel are actual photos. So I haven't had need for an illustrator, but for the ones on the first wedding, which goes back to the Garden of Eden, where God instituted the first marriage, which was between Adam and Eve, I'm going to need an illustrator for that. And I have an author, children's book author friend who also illustrates, and she has graciously offered to help me with that. So
Amazing. That's
so they'll
great.
be coming out soon.
Other than being a parent and grandparent, do you have any formal education background? Background in education?
Yeah, no, I've always worked with children. A lot of my jobs were either after school programs. I was a preschool teacher, assistant teacher for a few years. So I've worked with children a lot as far as that goes. But no, other than studying some theology, apologetics, and things like that. No formal teaching education. I teach at my church. I teach adults at church. So yeah.
What's the best or most significant book you've read about Israel other than your own?
I read more articles about Israel than I do books.
Okay.
I can't say I've ever sat down and read I don't know if I've read an actual book. Well, to me, the best book about Israel is my Bible,
Good
truth be
answer.
told.
I
But
didn't intend to set that up, but that is the correct answer.
that to me, that's where you're going to get the most pertinent and truth-filled information about Israel is through the Word of God. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Amazing. So let's talk about your coming to Israel.
Hmm.
This October. You're now again. I don't. I'm not sure when this audio will be dropped, but the video will be out within a day or two. But as we speak, it's the beginning of June, and you're planning to join us on Root and Branch in October.
Mhm.
And you and I have, because we've been in touch for a while, I know that you've said it, you've always wanted to come here. Why this year and why Root and Branch?
I just hope this year financially, hopefully, it's a little better. It's finances have been the deterrent. So, and of course, I want to. I've never wanted to come to Israel and just be hopping on and off a bus. My prayer has been, I want to go. I want to make myself useful to the people of Israel. I want to interact with the people of Israel. I don't just want to simply be a tourist.
Right.
I want to do something while I'm there.
Okay.
So
I have an
you've
amazing
given me
idea.
that opportunity.
I'm giving you the opportunity, but I want you to talk. I want you to talk about it in your own words, but I don't want you to let me forget. I had an amazing idea that I'm gonna completely impulsively put out there. But why Root and Branch? What's significant about that? Other than okay, you know me and you've met my friend. Yeah, you were on a couple of Zooms or one at least with my friend and partner,
Yeah.
Marzia Mirizadeh. What's exciting
Well,
about
I,
Root and
I like
Branch?
what Root and Branch is doing. I love that whole concept with the olive trees, you know? And so I don't care about, I'd love to get my hands dirty. So I love what that you guys have come up with, and the benefits of the oil that's made from it, and what you're choosing, where you're choosing to put it. You're talking at-risk youth, you're talking your defense, the IDF. Everything's going back into the community. And so what a great way to do that. Harvest those olives that, from what I understand, need harvesting to begin with, and it all being put back to the people of Israel.
Right.
And the opportunity that you also offer to engage with the people there.
Yeah. That's
That's
one of the
priceless. That's
it,
priceless.
it is priceless and it's essential because to speak metaphorically about the root and the branch, but not know who is the root,
Mm,
not have a relationship is okay. You can still get on with your day, but it's a living root. It's not a theoretical root. And from a Christian perspective, I'm speculating to be grafted into that is also not just a metaphor, but it's something that's alive. You spoke about
yeah,
keeping the scriptures alive
yeah.
and uh and the land. One of the things that's so interesting and that you're going to love. I think that's not even the sufficient word, is that because what we do is we harvest olives from public trees. We're not just
Mm,
going to an average olive orchard and saying, "Hey, can we help pick your olives?" But we're picking olives from trees that are in public city parks, along streets, and in national parks, and it's the city streets that allow us the engagement with the people
yeah,
because we're there and hopefully we've done it a little bit and hopefully we'll keep building that up that we'll get people Israeli Jews to help come and join and do the harvesting together so that it's not simply just the act of raking olives down from a tree. But I have to tell you, as much as I always say this and it's true, my partnership with Marzi, you know this, she was born in
mm,
Iran and became a Christian in Iran, and they arrested her and sentenced her to death because she became a Christian Iran. So our partnership is so unique and this
mm.
program is so unique, but it's the harvesting of olives in these national parks that when I where my days have been a blur recently, but I was explaining it to somebody how when I showed the jar, you can't really see it well because of my fake background, but the jar of the anointing oil that we're selling now, and you alluded to this, the when we sell each jar of this, the proceeds come back to be a blessing to soldiers and their families and at-risk youth and survivors and basically people who've been impacted most consequentially by the war. And when I was holding this up, I know, I was at a meeting with a pastor from Germany just the other day. And I was explaining how some of the olives that were in this very bottle of oil were harvested uh, in English, the phrase is a stone's throw, but I use an olive's throw away from a 3,500-year-old Canaanite gate. I mean,
Wow.
how remarkable is that? But I
Mm,
think the places that we're going to be this year in the Galilee are going to be
yeah.
so much more significant um, because of the biblical stories that are directly related specifically. And I know I'm getting into a plug for Root and Branch, but I guess I can do that.
That's
It's my show,
okay.
right? But no, but I get so excited about it. When Marzi and I went up to the Galilee after last year's harvest program, we were shown around by a senior staff member who's become a good friend in the Israel Nature and Parks Authority, and they are responsible for all of the national parks. And he took us to one site. It's called Sipori, I think Sepphoris or something like that in Greek, which was the main urban area 2 miles away from Nazareth when Jesus was a child growing up in Nazareth.
Mm,
And now Nazareth is a large Arab city of about 100,000 people in Israel, with unfortunately a very small Christian minority that's still there. Used to be a majority, but what this gentleman said was that if Jesus were coming to visit his grandparents, they would have come to this town called Sipori. And it's also where intuitively he and Joseph would have been building stuff for
Mm.
whoever they were building stuff for. So we're going to be there, right there. It's so amazing, and I think it's going to, when you see the topography, and I love that you're more interested in engaging than just getting on and off a bus, and then at the end of the day, forgetting all the places that you've been.
Yeah. And Galilee, it's funny, Galilee's always, someone asked me, what region would you want to visit if you went? It would have been the Galilee region for sure. Yeah.
If so you're going to be there. We're going to be staying uh, 9 nights in the smack in the middle of Galilee. There's going to be formal touring and informal touring, and harvesting, like I said, in all of these places. And some of them I hope will be maybe even uncomfortably close to the Lebanese border. I hope it'll be quieter than
Yeah.
it is, but that way you get a sense of the pulse of how Israelis have been living for the last 3
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. Because we have no clue. We have no clue.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
You,
remember watching
you,
my grandkids swinging on the swing set, and I thought to myself, I thought of Israel one day, and I was like, children outside swinging on the playgrounds in Israel, the parents especially are wondering if there's a missile, you
right.
know, that's going to come out of the sky. I'm thinking my grandkids here that's not even a blip on the radar, you know,
No,
nothing to be concerned about,
no,
and how
no,
fortunate we are.
yeah, very much so. I remember being here in 1982. I was not yet living here, but I came to work to volunteer on a kibbutz and travel for the summer. It was 1982. In fact, this week was the beginning of what now is called the first Lebanon War, but then it was just the
Mm.
Lebanon War and had a name Operation Peace for Galilee because then it wasn't Hezbollah, then it was just PLO terrorists firing Katyusha rockets into Israel all the time. So this is a military operation to get the terrorists out and push their weapons further back. And I remember living on a kibbutz that summer with a family whose son had just been killed on the first day of the war. And like you said, I didn't understand what that meant.
Mm.
And I wouldn't have known because they were so gracious. But I remember no, he wasn't the oldest son. The son who with whom I'm still in touch, now we're old men, once took me to the bomb shelter where he had set up his drums and explained to me that because of the war, mind you, this is just weeks after his brother was killed, the bomb shelter was able to be open and they were to be able to use it for recreational purposes because even in central Israel, kids had to be worried about where they could run for cover should a rocket be fired. So you're gonna get a lot of that. Um, I feel like
Mm.
there's so much more we could and should talk about, Rebecca, but I want to kind of let you. What else is on your heart? I deliberately wanted to have you on to promote the book. You shared it with me.
Hmm.
You asked me if I would write a review. Graciously, with enthusiasm, I did, and I mean that wholeheartedly. But what have we not covered? What do you want people who are following here to know about the book, to know about you, your podcast?
I think we said it all, honestly, about the book and the podcast. I just like to, maybe from the heart, just reach out to those who are listening who are Jewish. And I know we have theological differences, and I know there's been a history of persecution by those who claim the name of Christ. I always say that because a genuine, true believer would not do that. But there are millions of Christians here within the Christian faith around the world who just truly love you, and are grateful for the Jewish people. We have a respect for the Jewish people, whether we agree or not. Um, we still have that love and respect. And I know some people think Christians are interested in Israel because they want to bring about the end times. And again, no, that is not the mindset of so many of us. We love what God loves, and we're privileged. We feel very privileged. We consider ourselves a part of the Jewish faith, even if they may not. You know, the reciprocation's not there. That's okay. That doesn't change how we feel or how we view things. But they are in our hearts. Israel is in our hearts and in our prayers, and we are over here speaking out and standing up for the truth.
Yeah. So
you
I
know?
have that was beautiful, and thank you for using my opportunity to give you the last word to say that. That's real important. But now you've provoked a really powerful thought and question which I've never formulated or articulated or asked anybody. So forgive me, um but you talked about people who persecuted Jews in the name of Jesus and how that's not
Mhm.
really what the Christianity is.
It's
So I have
not.
a question, and maybe it's not a fair question just for wrapping up a conversation, but maybe should be a whole conversation in and of itself. I don't know when we can point our finger to say there was a pivot in the church, however one defines it,
Mm.
that so that there wasn't the predominant attitude of the church to either advocate for replacement theology, which is wrong biblically, but also leads to some very bad thoughts and consequences as a
Yeah.
result.
Yeah.
Is there a is would it be safe to say, because I my feeling as a Jew, as a Jewish person growing up in New Jersey, that for most of the early years of the church, and by early years I mean hundreds of years, maybe even the first thousand or more, the anti-Semitism was near more or less synonymous with the church. Is that a fair generalization? And if so, where was the pivot?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't. I only know in my several years here on this earth what my experience has been, within the church and with many, many, many other Christians that I know. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm sure I know there was, even back then. Um, there was persecution on both sides, really. When many of the Jews turned to Christianity, there was also Jewish persecuting the Christians in the beginning. But I don't know how. It amazes me how far the church or Christians can get from the truth of the Bible, other than biblical illiteracy on people's parts.
Yeah,
You know, um, again, there's always I'm ashamed and embarrassed about the things and many of us are, that the church historically has done and has committed against the Jewish people. It's rooted in ignorance. Really, it's ignorance of the scriptures, what God
interesting.
has to say, because He's clear about the Jewish people. He's clear about Israel. Um, for me, it's inexcusable.
Well,
But
thank you
I
for
can, yeah, I can
provoking.
only relate to what my lifetime
Sure,
and
sure, and that's a great.
experiences have
It's
been.
a great honest answer. I thank you for provoking the question. I'm curious as I replay this literally and physically, literally and figuratively, that I think that in and of itself should be a topic for a future podcast because there was a pivot. And when you made your comments about to the Jewish community about what you represent and what the true church represents, most Jews probably who listen it will be um, um, grateful, but still it
Yeah.
rubs against the history that we're just sort of understood. So thank you for provoking that thought,
Well, too,
Rebecca.
if I could
Yeah,
just interject real quick, I think um, the Jewish people, there may be many who view us through the lens of the Catholic Church as well.
also
And so within the church here, I'm what you would call an evangelical Christian, I guess. We do not agree with the Catholic Church, with their outlook on Mary and the saints, and we believe that there's idolatry that happens within the Catholic Church. It's just that's how it is with religions and denominations. It just makes such a jumble of everything. And for us, it's like, just stick to what the Bible says.
you're
We
right
believe it's the
because
inerrant word of God. It's to be
yeah,
trusted. It's infallible, and stick to what the Bible clearly says.
sure.
So,
American culture and in specific, but probably Western culture depicts Christians as Catholic,
Yeah.
and Jews, for good or for bad. But I'm just
Yeah.
saying that that's all Jews know. And uh, I was even talking to one of my daughters a week ago about this, and the child grew up in my home, and she's been around Christian friends of mine, and she didn't even know some very fundamental things. So it's real important that we have these conversations. Anyway, Rebecca, to be continued. I give a wholehearted, full, enthusiastic, three thumbs up endorsement for Israel Cherished and Chosen. I
Yeah.
hope people
Thank
will
you for that. It's
follow.
in the book. It's in the
Yeah.
very front pages of the book. Thank you.
I'm so excited. Okay, so
Yeah.
follow Rebecca, find Rebecca. All of the contact information is in the notes here, and and also check out her podcast, One Little Candle, as well. Rebecca, it's always a delight. Next time I see you, we'll be on our Root and Branch recruitment meeting, and then we'll get to see you physically in person in just a couple of months. I'm looking forward.
Me too. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you. And thank you to our sponsors. We actually have a new sponsor who's joined us. My dear friend, Priscilla Flory, who in my home, I just referred to my kids. My home, Priscilla, is referred to as my bonus mother. And actually, ironic that I say that because this week is the 20th anniversary of my own biological mother's death. So Priscilla is the closest that me and my wife have to a living mother, and she has graciously stepped in to be one of the sponsors of Inspiration from Zion, along with our friends, the Coin family, who continue with their meaningful sponsorship. Inspiration from Zion and all of the Genesis 123 Foundation programs are made possible by donations, so please consider joining us to help continue the dialogue and building bridges just like we're doing here and now. And if you'd like to sponsor a future episode, in honor or memory of a loved one or special occasion, or your special Christian children's book author, please be in touch at inspirationfromzion@gmail.com. We'd always love to hear your comments as part of a dialogue and invite you to send any questions as well, specifically questions you have about traditional Judaism for our Ask the Rabbi programs. Share this with others who will also find it of interest, and please continue to join us for more meaningful conversations about unique topics relating to Israel that you won't hear anywhere else. Wherever you are in the world, I pray that you and your loved ones are all safe and healthy, and I send my blessings from right here in the Judean mountains. God bless you.